Hello, everyone. So today we are going to be recording a podcast episode. And the podcast episode is all about getting off of Music Teacher Island and connecting with other people. So I felt like I had to go live and record this one live because I can't record an episode about connection and getting off of Music Teacher Island without connecting with you. So if you are live here in the chat, feel free to chime in at any point. I might refer to it during the episode, but we're going to be recording a podcast episode. So let's go ahead and I guess pop right in. Hello everyone and welcome back to That Music Podcast. Today we're recording live on Instagram and other places around the interwebs as we talk about how we can get off of Music Teacher Island. So what do I mean when I'm talking about Music Teacher Island? I use this phrase a lot and maybe I'm not clear and maybe you have never heard me say it. But Music Teacher Island, when I'm talking about Music Teacher Island, I'm really talking about connecting with other music teachers and getting from just being people that are in a music classroom kind of shoved in the corner to being able to actually have... Hold on, I've been informed my speaker is all messed up. How is it messed up? Do I sound like a demon again? Gotta love my video. If you are live, will you let me know what I sound like? Because apparently I don't sound great. Oh no. Oh please. Oh please.
Test, test. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. All right, I think I'm back. All right, I don't know what that is. I need a new soundboard. So let's do all of that over again, I guess. Goodness gracious. Hello, we're going to be recording a podcast episode. Bree, you're going to have to keep some of that for the blooper reel. All right, let's try again. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to That Music Podcast. We are recording this episode live on the internet as we talk about getting off of Music Teacher Island. So what do I mean when I'm talking about Music Teacher Island? I'm talking about that feeling of isolation because we are the only person that quite understands exactly what's going on in our classroom. Even if you're in a district that there's other elementary music teachers, you probably don't get to collaborate with them very often. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Because it's really hard sometimes not being able to just like walk down the door or walk down the hallway and kind of talk about something or how to bounce off of another person. That is a music educator. Yes, there are a lot of stuff that we can do that kind of use our colleagues that are non-music ed colleagues in a similar way. But there's something to be said about being able to collaborate with other elementary music teachers, not only just pedagogically and just how we make our curriculums, but also just like emotionally and energy wise. It can be really draining to be out of the music world, in our own little music world, kind of in our own little microcosm of the school. I don't know about you, but my favorite part of a conference, yes, I love getting new ideas from my classroom. I love being able to go to the vendors and all these different things, but I love being surrounded by other music teachers because even though music teachers, when we're all together, we're a lot. But then, even though we're a lot together, it's really nice to be able to surround yourself by other people who understands the reality of being a music teacher. And especially when you're able to get with other elementary music teachers, like that's why I love the Kodai conference so much. Now, talking about a lot, we are a weird breed, but we're able to not only share ideas, not only just be in each other's company, but we're also able to kind of build and kind of work on each other's energy. I don't know about you, but whenever I leave a conference, I always feel energized because not just because I have new ideas and things like that, but because I also have my energy is so much better. The OMEA, the Ohio Music Ed Conference, is typically before spring break here in Ohio. And my first year that I went to the Kodai conference, it was after my spring break, because it was just later. And I felt that. I really felt that in my bones as I was, powering through and, getting through the year, and I didn't have that kind of mid-winter boost. And that's why getting off Music Teacher Island is important. So I think I've talked enough about what is Music Teacher Island. Now, how do we actually get off it? First thing, yes, go to a conference. Go to your state MEA, go to a Kodai conference, go to an ORF conference, go to a workshop, ORF workshop, a Kodai workshop, whatever. Go to the Elementary Music Summit, which, by the way, when this episode goes live, will be like in 3 days. If you're listening live, you can actually grab your free ticket now, at musicteacher.com/summit, or in the show notes wherever you're listening. But whatever you do, conferences, I think, are kind of the easy answer. Conferences and workshops are kind of like, all right, I know that I need to do this. I know that, this would help, but that's just not practical for some things. One, you might be in a remote area where that's just not going to happen. You might, have to drive a few hours just to get to the closest chapter or Kodai chapter. What are some other ways we can do this? First of all, the internet. I love how the elementary music ed community and the music ed community in general has kind of taken to this online platform, and for the most part are pretty supportive. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some Facebook groups that are wild, and there's just too many people in it, and when you get too many people in a Facebook group, things can get a little weird. But what I love about, Music Teacher TikTok and Music Teacher Instagram is we tend to want to connect, because again, we want to get Music Teacher Island just like we want you to get off Music Teacher Island. The big reason why that Music Teacher exists is I wanted to get off Music Teacher Island. And actually, if we're going back further, I wanted to get on Music Teacher Island because I started that Music Teacher when I was outside of the music classroom. So those are some things that you can do. Now, so we have online, we have conferences. How do you balance the good and the bad? Because yes, when we get off Music Teacher Island, it can be really easy to turn it into a snark fest and to just be grumpy and talk about my job is worse, this is harder, and just kind of complain. I get that. It can be really nice to vent, especially when you're venting to people who understand why you're venting. But I want you to get out of the habit of being grumpy whenever you're surrounded by other music teachers. Because the more often you are just grumpy and in a bad mood and complaining when you're surrounded by music teachers, you're going to start associating being with music teachers with being grumpy. But also, we want to turn it into a positive. We want to, yes, we can be realistic. Don't get me wrong. There are things that really stink about being a teacher and being a music teacher. But the reality is, we get to choose what we focus on. And when we're choosing to focus on the good things or the solutions to the grumpy things, that is where we're best spending our time. We're not getting down on ourselves. We're not just, oh, woe is me. We're taking action. We're connecting with other people and saying, hey, my schedule's crazy this year. You could spend the whole conversation talking about how your schedule is awful, and they could try to one-up you. And then the person over at the table next to you could say, well, I'm on trimesters. Everybody can do that. But how many people will turn that conversation around and say, I have a trimester schedule. It's awful. Does anyone know what to do? Has anyone ever done this before? Does anyone have any suggestions? And when we're able to turn it into actionable things, which I know is really, because if anyone is listening to that knows me personally, I so often get stuck in that not practical. What is the practical, I get before the, what is the thing I can do? I get stuck in the doom and gloom. But whenever we're able to flip that and really turn it into practical things that can move us towards a solution, even if we don't fix the problem entirely, moving us closer to a situation or closer to a conclusion or a solution to that issue, I think that is what we should be doing, what we should be spending our time when we're getting off of Music Teacher Island. Because again, It doesn't happen often. We spend a lot of our time on that music teacher island where we are the only music teachers in our building, and we very rarely get to collaborate with other music teachers. So when we get the time to be able to connect, to be able to collaborate, to be able to help each other, we need to focus on the good. I'm not saying ignore the bad, but don't get stuck in that pit of despair. If you're at least going to dip your toe into that pit, dip your toe in a way, like for the reason of fixing the problem. Because if we keep just getting doomy and gloomy every time we get off the island, we're going to realize that it's just as bad as being on the island. And I think that mindset is not going to serve anyone. That mindset is not going to help us reclaim the time outside of our contract day. That mindset is not going to help us differentiate instruction. I'm not saying that we don't have an impossible job sometimes, and we are sometimes given impossible things that we have to do and make work. But what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do when we're given those impossible things? Are we going to give up? Are we just going to get doomy and gloomy? Or are we at least going to give it our best shot while working towards a solution so either that doesn't happen again, or we can make the best of it so that we're still giving our students the best and also still protecting our peace? That is where getting off Music Teacher Island matters in my eyes. So I'm getting a little preachy, but what I wanted to leave you with is this. I want to challenge you the next time that you are with other music teachers to shift that conversation so that you are not stuck in the who has the worst job or whose schedule stinks the most, or, flip that around. See if you can make it into, if you're going to talk about the bad stuff, the stuff you don't like, turn it into solution oriented. And if you're not, I kind of recommend sometimes you don't need to complain. Sometimes I want you to say, oh my gosh, look what I did with my fourth graders. Or I tried this new thing with my fifth graders and oh my gosh, it was a hilarious failure. And just kind of live that truth and live that type of conversation and use that. That is my challenge for you. And when you do this, I want to hold you a little bit accountable. I want you to message me on Instagram over at That Music Teacher and let me know how it went. Did it flip your perspective a little bit? Did it change the dynamic of the conversation? Did you leave feeling a little less frumpy? I'd love to hear how it went. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you listen to the podcast, it would mean the world to us if you were to leave a review wherever you're listening to now. The reviews on the podcast, especially over on Apple Podcasts, I'm just going to say, they really help us grow the podcast and get in front of new elementary music teachers who are looking to improve their instruction, reclaim their time outside of the school day, and also just make sure their classrooms are accessible to everyone. So when you leave a podcast review, we read all of them. We love to see them. That would mean the world to us if you would take a moment and leave a review there. And we would love to see you at the Elementary Music Summit. Again, you can grab your free ticket. If you're watching live, you can do this too. But if you're watching, or if you're listening to this when the podcast comes out, you just have a couple days left. If you head over to thatmusicteacher.com/summit, grab your free ticket. We have some wonderful free PD coming your way, specifically created by elementary music teachers for elementary music teachers. And hey, we're also able to get off Music Teacher Island a little bit and talk with other music teachers who understand where we're coming from.